Hello everyone. Today I wanted to show you one of my recent games which I played against Aryan Tari. I'm showing this game because of its slight beauty, I would say, and very interesting lines which followed up. And I thought you can enjoy the game and maybe learn few things here and there. So let's get started. So this game was played in Isle of Man, a fantastic tournament. It was a Grand Swiss. So I think the players who came in top two or top three were qualifying to candidates. So it was a tournament of big stature where even Magnus Carlsen played in. And this game was in, I think, somehow in the later half of the stages. I don't remember exactly which round was it, but definitely towards the end, last three rounds, one of this. And Ian is one of the people who have played very, very often, and I know, his style a little bit, if I can say so. So I picked a line which was a little bit irregular because he is very well prepared generally, and I wanted to play something offbeat. So I played the move knight f3 in the game. He played knight f6, c4, c5. Aryan Tari is a Grunfeld player, as you know, and that's why I chose the move knight f3 to not play the Grunfeld sometimes. So d4 takes. This is the English opening. I played g3. Yeah, there are many lines, but d5 is one of the most principled ones. Bishop g2, e5, knight f3, d4. Of course, those who are new to this opening, the obvious idea is that white can't take on e5 because of queen a5 check, and it attacks both the king and the knight. So that doesn't really work out. So after d4, I have to castle. He defends the pawn on e5. I play e3, bishop e7, takes, bishop f4, castle knight e5. So it's actually like a reverse Grunfeld if you look at it. Usually, such type of bishop and the structure you can get with Grunfeld with black side. Although now white has a couple of extra tempes, which I thought white can use because he has the initiative. Although objectively, I feel that this line is very much playable for both sides. I played the move knight e5, attacking this knight on c6. Aryan played queen to b6, supporting this knight. I played rook e1. I wanted to create some threats of knight c6, followed by rook takes e7. He played bishop e6 in defense. I played knight d2. Of course, it's very dangerous for black to capture on b2 because I can just play rook b1 and my rook will enter on the 7th rank. So he played rook fd8. I played the move queen b3. And here I think Aryan went wrong. He could have played something else. Maybe knight to a5 is generally a reasonable idea, I would say. The point is you can take. Although you have double pawns, maybe you have some counterplay over these weak pawn islands. So he played queen a6, but there is a big drawback to this move. And I would suggest take your time, um, take a few seconds, few minutes to think what white could have done here. And I guess you can pause the video right now. And here I played the move knight takes f7. And I remember Aryan was slightly surprised by this. Probably he didn't see it coming. It's a very nice idea. The point is, if you capture with the bishop, I give my g2 bishop, although it weakens the light squares, but I don't think black can immediately take advantage of it. So let's say he captures back with the queen. I take his bishop on e7. Now I'm a pawn up, and also my rook is on 7th rank. The light squares are weak, yes, but if the bishop was on b7, it would be a different story. But here, I think white has great compensation. Uh, Black doesn't have great compensation. Sorry, excuse me for that. But anyways, I think this was a better of the two options. But Aryan played king f7. He wanted to play something. Okay, he understood that this position is very dangerous for him, but he wanted to play something which gives him some chances rather than like go into a position which is like very passive and pawn down with no counterplay. So he played king f7, and of course, if you say A, you have to say B. So I played rook takes e6, another sacrifice. King takes e6, and I played the move c5. Of course, the idea is that I don't want the king to go back. There's only one square for the king, king to d7. And I remember here I thought for quite a while because, of course, I'm materially down. I'm a rook down. and his king is really weak. So this is very critical, the position right now. If I can somehow stop the king from consolidating, let's say he can go to e8 and f8, which is like a safer square, or hide on c8, then I have good chances in the game. And indeed, in this position, there are many beautiful lines. For example, I played the move bishop f1, but there are better moves here. And I think one of the key ideas here is to play rook to e1. I really like this idea. The point is you want to bring your queen to e6, bringing more pieces into attack. That's one of the most fundamental principles of attack. Bring in more resources, more pieces. But in during the game, I was worried, what if he goes king to e8 and simply puts the king on f8? Can I actually do something about it? If not, then I'll be just a rook down. But here there was a brilliant move, knight to e4. Counterintuitive, but very strong. The point is, if you play knight e4, I saw this move and I was under the impression here that I should play very forcing. So I was only calculating moves like queen to g8, because after king d7, bishop h3 would be a checkmate, a cute one. So he has to play bishop f8. I give another check and knight comes to e7. And here I struggle to come up with a continuation. How do I bring in more pieces to attack? And I drop the variation. But in fact, in this position, white has so much of luxury that he doesn't need to play the only forcing moves like queen to g8. He can play bishop to e4, which was just amazing. The point is, like now if the king tries to go to f8 to hide, white has bishop h7, and now the threat of queen g8 checkmate is unavoidable. That's really a very beautiful position here. And if he plays knight to a5, their lines are just beautiful. I'll not like explain, just look at the lines and they're so beautiful. Knight f6 check, queen takes f6, and now you of course play the move queen to g8 check, queen to f8, and now again the momentum, you once your king is tied up, you have to keep on increasing the, what to say, is the speed, the initiative. And here the move is rook takes e7, king e7, bishop g5, king d7, all forcing moves, all checks, queen d5, king goes to c7, queen e5 check, only move. Of course bishop f4 is met with queen takes f4, where this queen on d5 is hanging. So that's why I play queen e5, king to c8, bishop h3 check, rook d7. And it might seem that okay, the worst is gone, but here there's a cute little move, queen e6, and then we realize that the rook on d7 is simply undefendable. There's no way the queen can actually defend this, and on the next move white will just win the game. Beautiful variations. After rook e1, it would have been like one of my best games in attacking sense, but I played the move bishop f1, trying to trap the queen on a6. It would be trapped, but black had a resource here, and that was the move d3. Because of course if you move the queen to a5, queen b7 will take the knight and the king is in big danger. So he played the move d3. Aryan played it very quickly, bishop d3, and here comes the point, knight to d4, counter attacking my queen. And there's no way I can keep the pressure here with the queens on, so I had to transform. Bishop a6, knight b3, I give a check, king goes to c8, and now knight takes b3. So now the dust has settled, the sacrifices, all of that is over. But you can see now, although materially I'm doing fine, I have a minor piece and 2 pawns for the rook. Also, more importantly, the position of the king. Even in endgame, it's not entirely safe. For example, his rooks are not connected. So definitely white has a big advantage here. And you can see in the next couple of moves that black really struggled to get out of this mess. He played knight d5. And the point is, like, if you play bishop to e5, maybe black can play bishop f6 and get this piece in. So that's why I played the move rook e1. Another very good move. Point is, if you play knight f4, I capture on e7. Let's say you give a check. I have this move bishop f1, covering up my king. And now the knight is attacked. And if you move it somewhere, let's say knight to g6, I can just capture the remaining pawns. So here Aryan played the move a5. It's very tricky. It's very tricky. First of all, there is the idea of a4, and also it gives some space to the rook. Here the obvious reaction would be to play the move a4. What has changed? Nothing has changed. I stop his pawn, and the king is still stuck there. The rook is still stuck on 8. Nothing has changed really. But here, there's a very nice idea for black. If you want to give it some time, you can think over it, but it's really pretty. So the idea here is knight f4, rook e7, rook d1 check, bishop comes to f1, and it's the same position like before, but here he has an additional resource, that is rook to a6. Brilliant idea. Point is, if you take gf4, rook swings across to g6, king h1, and rook f1 is a checkmate. So of course, when you are converting advantages, one of the key things you have to remember is to look out for your opponent's resources. And here, luckily, I saw this and I played the move bishop e5, as I did not want to allow him this counterplay. He played bishop f6. Of course, I keep my two bishops. I played bishop d6. It's more important to trap the king than go for any material. Like bishop b2, he can play, but then I have many moves. For example, I can bring back my bishop to f1 to give a check on h3, and the king is in real big danger. And I think there are other moves as well, but this is one of the good ones. He played a4. I bring back my knight. He played a3. Somehow he wanted to bring his rook in the game, which is completely understandable. I took rook a3, and here there's a nice move which almost wins the game. I played it. I already showed you the idea. That is bishop f1. The bishop is rerouted from b5 to h3, and suddenly the king is not having any good squares. And I thought, okay, this position is lost. I was sitting in the board and thought, okay, he has no good moves. I think one of the good moves here is to play king d7. Idea is bishop h3 to run with the king. But here there's a strong idea. Knight e4, king c6, rook b1, again trying to threaten checkmate on b5. Eventually he has to give up some material, and you can see the domination of white pieces. It's just a matter of time when white would just capitalize on it. But suddenly, out of nowhere, after bishop f1, Aryan blitz out the move b5, and I was like surprised. I was taken away. Like, I did not see this move, so that's why it was a surprise. And the point is, uh, after bishop h3, he has the square king to b7, and if I play bishop g2, trying to attack the knight, he has rook d3, defending it, and I was not sure what's really going on. So I was a little bit caught by surprise, and I played a terrible move, almost gave away all my advantage. I played cb6. Of course, the point is, like, after rook d6, I play knight c4, forking both the rooks. Pretty, but not the best move. In fact, here, white can instantly win the game, and that is by playing bishop h3 check, king b7, c6 check. And I saw this as soon as I took the pawn on b6, and I realized, oh no, I've messed up. And this really haunted me at that moment, because this is just lost. King c6, bishop a3, and Aryan would resign. I'm an extra piece up with zero counterplay for black, and I was really so upset with myself when this happened. Luckily, I still won the game, so I'm no longer upset. But yeah, at that moment, I was furious with myself. He played rook a2, knight c4. Although the king is still in danger, now he has some breathing space. He played bishop d4, attacking my pawn on b6 on f2. And here it was just, I think I would say I got a little bit lucky. I played the move rook b1, which is the best move, trying to play b7 check. Here Aryan made a slight inaccuracy. Of course, black cannot really avoid all the threats like king b7, because white has bishop g2 pinning. So he had to give up an exchange to take away my bishop on d6, but he could have done it in a better way. In the game, he directly took on d6, but had he played bishop f2 first, king h1, takes, king b8, I still have a pawn on b6. I'm an extra pawner, but my king is also like now slightly weak, and it's not really easy to convert, and it would have been a very tough task to win this game. The point is, after bishop c4, which seems like it's almost winning, because after rook d2, I have again a fork, but he has this move rook a5. Probably Aryan missed this, and he's still fighting, and he's very much in the game. He played rook d6 directly, knight d6, king b8, and of course I realized that this pawn on f2 is easier to defend this pawn than this pawn on b6. So I play knight e4, knight b6. It's very okay. Of course, white is having an advantage. He is an extra pawn, but at the same time, it's very little material and all the pawns are on the same side. So I think white is clearly better, but it will take a lot of time to win. Um, but I think I managed to win this game because of the slight discoordination among black pieces. So I played the move rook d1, rook a4, knight g5. I was trying to be tricky because it's close to 40 moves. And I thought, okay, if I can somehow use the fact of his time pressure and create some threats, maybe I can win the game. He played h6, knight e6, bishop f6. Everything is protected. But here I played some cheap tricks. I played this move rook b1, pinning the knight and the king. King came to a7. I played rook c1. Apparently, the threat is to play rook c7 check, but that's not actually the threat. He played rook e4, and here he missed my simple, very basic idea on the move number 39, knight g7. The point is, if bishop takes knight, rook c7 attacks the king and the bishop, and then once you have two extra pawns with the bishop, it's just easily winning. Aryan had to find in this position some ideas like king b8, somehow stop this rook from coming to c7, or play knight d5, and it would have been a game. White is still better, but the game would have lasted much longer. But in any case, he played this move rook e4, and after knight g7, he just threw in the towel and resigned. Not a perfect game, but I thought the variations were very exciting, especially how after giving an entire rook in the middle game, you can just play quiet moves, not really quiet, but like developing or building up moves to sustain the attack. I thought that would be very instructive, and how to handle the initiative is also one of the things which we can see or understand from this game. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this game and learned something which you can apply in your own game or games. Thank you.